Oh man, I didn't mean to press the live button so quickly. I was still getting my thoughts together. But thank you if you're joining me live. I actually debated coming on tonight. That's why it's so late in the evening. But do have some stuff to talk about today. Definitely have a lot to talk about. So I'd be remiss if I skip today. You guys will allow me a second to share this on my personal page. I have my laptop here. And thank you for joining me if you're coming on live right now. This is a day after the election, right? And I'm just going to wait a little bit. But what I do want to talk about is moving forward during tense times, right? Or uncertain times. Moving forward during tense and uncertain times, right? And at the end of the day, as human beings, what I've learned is all we want is certainty, right? If you think about, there's a psychologist named Maslow, right? And he introduced in his work the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And as human beings, we just want certainty. At the bottom, we just want to make sure physiologically our health is taken care of. We're healthy. We got food in our body, water when we're thirsty. And then once we have that need met, we move to like security. We want to make sure we're safe, our family's safe. And then you kind of move to like love and belonging. You want to make sure you find love, right? And then you move to like friendships and improving yourself. And then at the very top is called self-actualization, where your life really mattered and you really found what you were here for, right? And that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But at the bottom is just certainty. You know, we all want certainty. And this election has caused a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people. And I'm not just talking about one type of person, right? There are people that are frustrated, people that are angry, right? People that are bewildered. They don't know what the future brings. Their place in it, their stake in it, causes them to question their fellow man. And regardless of what side, now, I didn't vote for Trump. I can say that much. But what I talked about yesterday still rings true. If you caught my message yesterday, I said vote, but I said ultimately vote for yourself. I said vote, but ultimately be president of your own life. I said exercise your right to vote, but know who's the captain of your own ship. And even though I was a part of that group, maybe a little confused last night, okay, a lot confused. You know, woke up this morning at like 2 a.m. I don't know if you can see the bags under my eyes. You know, told my wife, I said, yeah, it happened. And we probably stayed up, and then the kids, as they always do, they jump in our bed anyway around this time. So we're all up at 2 a.m. and, you know, just making sense of where we go from here, right? The future. But, you know, I went to sleep and I woke up this morning and I realized, you know what? My day didn't change that much. Now, sure, I had CNN on satellite. I had a trip to make today, so I had some time in the car. But I stayed true to my fitness goals, just like usual. In the gym, I lifted just what I would have lifted. I talked to the people I would have talked to. I meditated. I prayed. I got some reading in. I still got my mind on my vision. Because ultimately, I know that no president, no senator, no governor can ultimately be captain of my ship better than I can, right? And I heard this quote, we're all in motion, right? But you just want to be able to control the direction of that motion, right? We're all moving. Either you're growing or you're shrinking. You're moving ahead, you're moving backwards, but we all just want to be in control of our direction. And none of us, when we come into our power and realize our human potential, none of us should ever rely on government or bureaucracies to do that for us. So on one end, I'm confused and I have all the same feelings, a little disappointed. I would have loved to see that glass shattered. And even on the other side, I mean, I talk to friends, I got all diverse types of people in my life. And Trump wasn't their first pick either. I mean, that party had to figure it out too. And ultimately, that party got what it wanted, right? Control of everything. And that says something in and of itself, you know, about the country and where we're at and people's ability. But, you know, whether you agree that this was a race against Hillary or a race towards Trump's strength, it doesn't really matter to me. But what I do want to cover is how to move forward, right? The serenity prayer, right? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I start by to tell you, you're not changing this. This is 4 years. So God, grant me, right, the serenity to accept that, because that's not changing. Grant me the courage to change the things I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? So some things you just can't change. It's 90 degrees in November here in California, windy, weather you're not going to be able to change. There are going to be some external circumstances that come in our lives we're never going to be able to change. But what we can change and what we can have the courage to change usually starts with us and how we respond to circumstances, right? So the first thing I would say, all these happen to start with P, right? These are my own things. I'm having like a conversation with myself almost, right? And before I do that, let me just check some of the comments here. I thank you all for joining me. Darius, Brian Hall over at the office, Nakincha, my sister, Chris Davis. I like this, Brian. He says, be your own mayor. Yep, be your own governor. Be your own president, your own commander-in-chief of your life. I think I remember hearing you say something like that this morning at the gym. I did say that because I said ultimately you're a commander. You're commander of your own life. Were you still down the bottom of the whiteboard today? I don't know what you're talking about there. Nakincha says, that's right, brother. I am my own governor with God's guidance. Amen. It starts with me. I agree. Right? So step one, right? I think is prayer. I'm a praying spiritual person. I believe in God. I believe what the scriptures say. Ecclesiastes 3 says there's a time and place for everything. And there's a purpose for everything. Romans 13 says there's no power ordained that's not ordained by God. Right? So if you believe in God and you believe God is omnipotent and omniscient, then you kind of got to balance this thing between predestination and, I guess, what do they call it? Free human will. Right? And at the end of the day, when things like this happen and you believe in God and God is your source, you got to say that, because you diminish God if you think that this happened outside of his control, right? So when you look at circumstances like this, it's okay to ask why or what's the message here or, you know, what's happening here. But pray. Pray for your own understanding. You know, I pray for my own wisdom in moving forward. I pray for others. Pray for the commander-in-chief. He's your commander-in-chief, my commander-in-chief. Pray for him. Now's not the time to divide, right? What is the prayer again? Give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So that's going to be that. Right? Now we got to come together and we got to pray for his leadership, guidance, that he'll make the right decisions that are good for all people, right? And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because the second P is positivity, right? I'm just wired this way, you guys. I can't help it, but I see the cup always half empty and not half full. And maybe for some people today this news comes as a shock and very sad and and you have reason to be, right? But I still see the cup half full. And this is a conversation I had with my wife, and I'm just gonna be honest. She was like, "You crazy? I love your optimism, but yeah, that if that happens, that's good. But this is how I think when I'm in optimism mode." I said, I understand marketing very well. I understand advertising. I understand psychology, neuro-linguistic programming, and I understand from a strategic level what Trump did. Trump played to fear. Trump didn't run on policy. Trump didn't run on logic. All of us can agree on that. If you're a marketer and you come from that world with me, you already know persuasion, psychology, and that's what Trump ran on. And for that matter, Hillary had that part covered as well. And I would hope that Trump the marketer, right? Trump the marketer, what got him here is not the same tactics that gets him there. I can separate the two. I can say, okay, Trump, I see what you did to get here, and you played it. You did extremes. But I notice also his tone in his acceptance speech, more presidential. And it is my hope in my positive, optimistic mind, because I can't help it, that he does move forward as a president of all people and puts aside the tactics that got him here. Fair, he played the chess game, and he played it better, because at the end of the day, the proof's in the pudding, and he didn't just play it for himself. He helped that entire party do some things they haven't done in a long time. So he played it up until this point. But optimistically, give him a try. Give him a try as president. Okay? He may have pissed you off as candidate. He may have pissed you off as marketer. But he hasn't been president yet. And that's just my positivity, right? And so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. I'm going to see how he communicates. I'm going to see what he does to bring people together, to undo. Maybe some apologies are in order. He's president now. What can we do? So prayer, positivity, patience. That goes along with the positivity. Patience. I think we all could use a little bit more patience in this transition of power. And patience is a virtue, and very important right now to give it some time. And you have a right to be anxious and things like that, but like I said, life moves on, and when you're captain of your own ship, you learn to be, first of all, you're focused on your goals so much that a lot of stuff you miss. A lot of these nitpicking things, I'm like forest trees, branches, leaves. A lot of things, because you're so focused, but we all can learn patience, right? While we're waiting and while we're being patient and positive and, cup half full, the next P is peace. Peace and politeness. Even for the other side, regardless of what side you're on. Empathy, right? I learned empathy even in marketing, right? Empathy is probably one of the biggest skills you can learn, right, in business. Empathy is walking in someone else's shoes. Just taking the time and the effort to see someone else's shoes. Even my man Darius on, we've had some very sensitive topics about race in all of this, right? And empathy, for example, so I've been looking at my timeline, and it's easy for someone to say everybody that voted for Trump is a bigot or whatnot. Now there's some factual things about Trump and his past and his stances and his bigotry and insensitivity to women, and there's some real things there. I'm just going to say it. There are some very real things there. But I also understand with empathy, as I understand people that voted for Trump, that they don't see through the same lens that I see, and I don't see through the same lens that they see. What's priority to me and what is undebatable to me, and what is the lens through which maybe I've lived the 33 years I've lived here, is not the lens that everyone sees. Somebody may have sent a son to Iraq and almost lost their life because of something that they perceived Clinton to be over, and vowed that they would never vote for her. And here I am pointing the finger at them saying, oh, you voted him because, you got these, bigotry. And that's far from their mindset. Their mindset is about their son, ain't got nothing to do with you, their son in Iraq, and, Clinton's position or whatever, some decisions she's made. And I actually saw this, and they vowed to never vote for her. That was their perspective. Other people's perspective, I came across someone here locally from another country, and they said something about Clinton. Their kids wouldn't be able to come to college here for some reason, right? And that was their reason. And when you get to just sitting down with people, you figure out that some people do have what you've accused them of. Don't get me wrong. But other people, they see through different lenses. Now, as a black man, it's hard for people that are not black to understand that the lens of race, I didn't choose that lens, but since I was a kid, I've had to see the world that way. Like, I'm not saying I don't pop out my mama and choose to see the world through the lens of race. But that's something sociologically, through my environment and things that happen and conditions, that if you look like me, you see the world through that lens. So then when a man like Donald Trump pops up, you don't care what his policies are. You don't care about that number one thing, and you see what he attracts and the types of hate that are spewed from the people that follow him. I'm not saying all people. And then if you're me for 33 years seeing the world through that lens, you see what's going to be important to me. Someone not seeing the world through that lens, they're going to have other ways by which they evaluate their candidate. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, because I understand empathy, and I just understand what I'm emotionally connected to is not going to be the same thing that you're emotionally connected to. And I understand that. Oh man, I thought I lost it. I'm gonna stop pressing. I keep getting these alerts and stuff. But my point is, it's easy to point the finger, and this is all sides. I'm talking to all sides, right? But especially with the people you really know well, says my connection is weak. The people you know really well that are on the other side, if you will, opposing your side, before you cut them off or you're ready to delete them and get them out your life, this all goes to peace and politeness, right? Have a conversation. Like, take this time and you're dealing with this. Would be better rather than assuming things. Have a conversation, and you really want to know, you want to understand their decision-making process. And then in turn, talk about yours. And I think through this process, no matter what side you're on, an understanding can be gotten or arrived at. And I'm not making any excuses for any side. I'm not here for that, but I know also what has to happen to move forward when you cannot change something. So you can sit around talking about it, but at the end of the day, we've got to have intelligent action moving forward and productive. I'm always about productiveness, and that's my last P, is proactivity. Reactivity is looking back and always reacting to something. Proactive is like, okay, considering these circumstances, this is what I'm going to do. And you know what? Proactivity for me, I've already explained to you, I've already shown you guys my life plan, and in a previous video, I've shared dream books, I've shared my goals and aspirations, and my closest friends know them. That was here before the presidential election. That will be here after. And in Jermaine Griggs Inc., or Jermaine Griggs Home Inc., Jermaine Griggs Life, I'm gonna remain captain of my ship. So I'll make that same challenge to you, is what are the things that you can start doing to make yourself immune to these sorts of changes. And I'm not saying I'm immune to these sorts of changes, but I do think that there comes a certain level of independence and autonomy that can be gained from working on yourself more than concerned about outside circumstances. Jim Rohn said, he says, we got to work on ourselves more than we work on our job. And you work on yourselves by, feeding your mind information, more education. And education is not college, just college. It's books, it's reading, it's learning from the past wisdoms of other people. It's, it's learning to harness certain qualities about ourselves, to be more patient if we lack in that regard, to be less angry if we lack in that regard, to be more gentle, meditation and prayer and introspection and those types of things. So I try daily to work on those types of things. I lost my connection. And just try to do the things to make myself better so I can show up better in the world. And when you start focusing on yourself, it's not that these things matter less to you, they don't, but you're not as connected to outside outcomes. Because at the end of the day, whether it was Hillary or Trump, Obama or Romney, Bush or Gore, I've lived as a business person through three different administrations. And you know what? I can't think of one time an administration did anything. Maybe I paid more or less taxes here or there. But heck, if you got a lot of taxes to pay, count your blessings. You could have been born somewhere where you don't even have access to the internet right now. And you had no control over your sperm meeting your mom's egg, and it just happened to be in U.S. or in a country where you had a pathway to the U.S. Just count your blessings. Perspective. I'm glad I'm here, right? But I also, I'm not going to complain because I'm having to write a big check either. When I know other people, they don't have food and clean water. So it's all about perspective. And so I can't think of anything an administration has done that has changed the trajectory, let's say, of my personal life or business in a way that better, more intense than my own personal actions. And that's all I'm saying. So let's move forward prayerfully. Let's move forward positively. Let's move forward patiently. Let's not forget to move forward politely, empathetically. And let's move forward proactively. I want to see who's in the house. Nakinsha, she says, daily self-improvements are my goals. Do something now that your future self will thank you for. I love that. I love that. Daily self-improvements. It's about just making yourself just an inch, a centimeter better than yesterday. And over a lifespan, you'll look back. And I like that. You would thank your younger self for putting these habits in place to just make yourself a little bit better. And in the prayer category, ask God, what is the meaning of this and what is the message for you personally? How do you move forward? Cynthia's in the house. Brian says he may feel slightly sincere about some of those things, but he was communicating in a way that was so far extreme that I just cannot believe and hope it is untrue that he truly feels that way. He was trying to strategically strike a nerve and hit a mark, and he succeed. Yeah, you're right. A lot of us are going to have to go, where Jesus said, how often do you forgive? I think somebody asked him, how often do you forgive? And he said 7 times 70. Okay, so all this Bible study, it comes to play here. And because again, you can escape the leadership, and you do that by leaving, or you're staying. And you already know what you're doing. And if you're staying, you're going to have to exercise that virtue. And that virtue is, if the man was playing chess, and if the man was being strategic, and if the man was striking a chord, and he was going to the extremes to do it, can I forgive him for that? That's one question. And number two, can I go with positivity and give him a chance to make that right as my president? That'd be another question that I'd ask myself. And that's where the patience comes in. So I can now wait. I don't have to make any assumptions that it's going to be this way, because it's like the way it works to me is like whatever you think you're right. Like whether you think you're wrong or right, or whether you think it is going to happen or not, you're right, because it's like that's what happens. And globally, like what we expect is what we get as well. So I really believe that. I can't think of the exact quote, but whether you think you can or not, you're right. I think it applies to perspective in what you think other people are going to do as well. You know, hold them to a high standard. This is the presidential process that led us to this place. So if you believe in that process has led us here. Now, all you can do is give it a chance with positivity. Nikencha says forest, trees, branches, leaves. That's right. When I say that, I'm talking about like forest is like high level concept stuff. And then trees is bringing it a little bit down to a tactical level. And then branches are like very specific steps and things, and then leaves are like minute detail. And you can just apply it to anything. When you're trying to get like perspective on things, you may need to get out to the forest level. You know, they say you can't see the forest for the trees, because some people are like too specific and too in the trenches, and then they don't zoom out. Like I would use that excuse for somebody like complaining about taxes, but their tax return has 2 commas on it. 2 commas. Yeah, you can complain, and yeah, it's your hard-earned money, but when you zoom out and you get a real perspective and you go live with the monks in India, or you go travel some of the remote villages in another country, you're not going to complain about your 2 commas and the percentage that you have to pay. Perspective. And perspective, I think, will change the world. Perspective will change your ideals about something. When you change the way you look at things, a man, Wayne Dyer, said this: you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And to me, that's called perspective. Let's see what else. Nick Liberati, thank you for joining me. Tiffany Williams, start with me. Yes, ma'am. Justin, join me. Steve Arnold, one of my clients. Hey, Jermaine, thanks for the most positive view on this topic I've seen so far. You know, I try to stay positive. Because if I let that negativity get to me, it's like what do you call it, the butterfly effect? Like just a little ounce of negativity, and it's okay to mourn and to be, to have emotions. It's okay. But I just think of the long-term impact of all the things that are opposite of what I told you in my life plan I wanted to show up like. I want to exhibit the fruit of the Spirit. So if I'm exhibiting anger, I zoom out and I ask why, and how can I replace that with a positive emotion? If I'm experiencing jealousy or envy, I ask why, and I want to replace that with the opposite emotion. I'm experiencing anything that does not serve me and serve mankind. And it just starts with me. I can't ask what that other person is doing or what they're doing, and I can't use them as a basis for my attitude towards something, or my position, or my behavior, because that's called being reactive. And I always said I will always be more proactive than reactive. I will always control my own emotions before having somebody else control my emotions. I will always determine how I show up rather than reacting to how someone else shows up. That's called being a leader. That's called being a leader. I'm going to drive my own ship. I'm going to be at the helm of my own ship. You're at the helm of your own ship. And hopefully our ships are going in the right direction. But not all ships can come to our destination. Not everybody's going to come with you, and that's okay. But proactivity and yeah, that's my prayer. Bishop Dorsey has just joined me on the tail end. I'm getting out of here, Bishop, but thank you for being on. Joe says, Jermaine, you've always been positive since I met you at Underground 3 and instantly knew you'd win. Oh man, Joe, it's always been a pleasure when I'm able to connect with you. You must be talking 2007 when we met. And Yeah, I think my grandma said, she said, a positive attitude will always work for you, and a negative attitude will always work against you. She ingrained that in our heads. I was 7th grade, and she always said, now whether we all believed it and even whether she believed it, because I know Granny can go like, but she ingrained it. And when I find myself being negative, I said, to what end? What is this going to ultimately do? I can vent and things like that. But I think one's ability and speed to get back to proactivity and production and productivity, to that extent, they'll be successful, and everybody around them. So I think that's it. I think I'm going to get out of here. But thank you guys for joining me on just my thoughts post-election, how to move forward in tense times, how to find certainty in uncertain situations. And I understand. Let's just put it that way. I understand. All right. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.